white people fight for the right to carry a gun out the house every day. Did you leave your house with the intent to take a life with that gun? Sloan, where they ask white people if you can pick your jury, who would you like to have on there? Almost every white person said they wanted black people on their jury. These are the people you mistreated your whole life, and you still want them on your jury. Because guess what, Loon? After they get finished calling us crack addicts, after they get finished calling us drug dealers, after they get finished calling us baby moms, after they get finished calling us eternal victims, you know what they also got to call us? The fairest people God ever put on this planet.
Karmelo Anthony has officially been sentenced to 35 years in prison, and almost instantly, the internet exploded. On one side, critics argued that justice had finally been served. They believed the jury made the right decision and that the sentence reflected the seriousness of the case. But on the other side, supporters weren't just disappointed, they were furious. Across social media, questions started flooding in. Did the jury get it right? Was all of the evidence actually shown? And was Karmelo given a fair chance to defend himself? As the debate intensified, one of the loudest reactions came from a man who has never been afraid to challenge the mainstream narrative, Dr. Umar Johnson. And unlike many people online who focused only on the knife, the fight, or the final verdict, Dr. Umar took aim at something much bigger. According to him, the real story wasn't what happened under that tent. The real story was what happened inside the courtroom. In a fiery appearance that quickly started making rounds online, Dr. Umar questioned everything from the jury selection process to the evidence presented during the trial. And as his frustration grew, so did the controversy surrounding his claims.
And I want to talk.
And that's exactly why the prosecution didn't allow any black jurors, Loon. Because a black juror with our balanced sense of justice would have saw that there's no way a child could go under a tent and know ahead of time that two white boys are going to come over there to jump him. Him having a knife, it's a complete contradiction for Caucasian nation to say, why did he have a knife? You crackers walk around with guns every day. When you put your gun on your hip this morning, did you do it with the intent to kill anybody? Loon! These white people fight for the right to carry a gun out the house every day. Did you leave your house with the intent to take a life with that gun? No, you didn't. So why are you going to say this little black boy left his house?
But Dr. Umar wasn't just questioning the knife. He was questioning the entire trial. And his next claim may have been the most explosive one yet. For Dr. Umar, the biggest issue in this entire case wasn't the knife, it wasn't the fight, and it wasn't even the final sentence. According to him, the most important part of the trial happened long before the jury ever entered the deliberation room. It happened during jury selection, and that's where his criticism becomes far more controversial. Dr. Umar argues that the makeup of the jury may have shaped the outcome of the case from the very beginning. In his view, the absence of black jurors wasn't just an unfortunate coincidence. It was a major factor that influenced how the evidence was interpreted. Now, whether people agree with that argument or not, it has become one of the most debated aspects of the entire case. Supporters of Karmelo Anthony point to the jury composition as proof that the trial was never completely balanced. Critics, on the other hand, argue that jurors are selected through a legal process and that the verdict should be judged based on evidence, not race. But Dr. Umar sees it differently. He believes that even a single juror with a different perspective could have changed the entire conversation inside that room. And that's exactly why his next statement immediately caught people's attention online.
The prosecution know how fair black people are, so he couldn't have any on the jury. And why couldn't he have any on the jury, Loon? Because in the state of Texas, if you're on trial for murder, the verdict of the jury must be unanimous.
Exactly.
If one black person would have made it onto that jury, Karmelo doesn't go to jail for 35 years.
When that clip started circulating, reactions were immediate. Some people called it an uncomfortable truth. Others dismissed it as pure speculation. But Dr. Umar wasn't finished, because in his opinion, the jury wasn't just important to the outcome. He believes the prosecution already knew there were weaknesses in the case itself. And according to him, that explains several questions that supporters of Karmelo Anthony continue to raise. Questions about the evidence, questions about witness testimony, and questions about what the jury was ultimately allowed to see. Whether those concerns are valid or not remains heavily disputed, but Dr. Umar argues that if the case was as strong as many people claimed, there would be no reason for so many questions to remain unanswered. That's when he made perhaps his most explosive accusation of the entire interview.
The prosecution knew that, which automatically tells you what? The prosecution knew that the case was flawed from the beginning. Why you think they won't show you the video, Loon? They keep showing you grainy videos when you had witnesses out there who said a lot of people videotaped the situation. Most of the kids under the tent taped the case. Loon, they taped it.
That statement immediately pushed the conversation into even more controversial territory. Because once someone starts claiming that a case was flawed from the beginning, every unanswered question suddenly becomes more important. And according to Dr. Umar, there was one question that stood above the rest, a question involving footage that the public never got to see. And that's where Umar's next claim becomes even more controversial. As controversial as Dr. Umar's jury argument was, it wasn't the claim that generated the most attention. That distinction belongs to something else entirely, the video. Because according to Dr. Umar, one of the biggest unanswered questions in the entire case isn't about what people were told happened. It's about what people were actually allowed to see. In today's world, almost everything gets recorded. School events, sporting events, arguments, fights, and random moments often spread across social media within hours. That's why Dr. Umar says he struggles to understand how an incident involving so many people could produce so little clear footage. According to him, witnesses at the scene reportedly recorded portions of what happened. Multiple people were present. Phones were everywhere. Yet despite all of that, the public was never shown a complete recording that answered every question surrounding the confrontation. And for Dr. Umar, that raises suspicion, not because he claims to know exactly what happened, but because he believes the missing footage could provide context many people never saw. Context about how the confrontation started, context about who approached whom, and context about whether Karmelo Anthony was acting aggressively or reacting to a situation that had already escalated. That distinction matters, because in cases like this, a few seconds of footage can completely change how an incident is perceived. A short clip can make someone appear guilty, while a longer clip can tell a very different story. And that's exactly...
The prosecution knew that, which automatically tells you what? The prosecution knew that the case was flawed from the beginning. Why you think they won't show you the video, Loon? They keep showing you grainy videos when you had witnesses out there who said a lot of people videotaped the situation. Most of the kids under the tent taped the case. Loon, they taped it. Why did we never see the clear video? Because if you would have saw a clear video, you would have saw that Karmelo was not just in an altercation, okay, with Austin, right? It was Austin and Hunter. And not only was it Austin and Hunter, there were two other boys. 4 boys tried to jump Karmelo, Loon.
What makes this argument so controversial is that it doesn't stop with the footage itself. It expands into something much bigger. If there really were additional recordings, where are they? Were they reviewed? Did investigators see them? Did the jury see them? Or are people simply assuming that footage exists when it actually doesn't? Those questions continue to fuel debate online. Supporters of the verdict argue that the jury had access to the evidence it needed and reached a lawful conclusion. Meanwhile, critics continue to point toward the missing footage as one of the biggest unresolved mysteries in the entire case. And that's where Dr. Umar pushed the argument even further. Because according to him, the video wasn't important just because it might show the fight. He believes it could completely change the public's understanding of how many people were involved in the confrontation.
Why did we never see the clear video? Because if you would have saw a clear video, you would have saw that Karmelo was not just in an altercation, okay, with Austin, right? It was Austin and Hunter. And not only was it Austin and Hunter, there were two other boys. 4 boys tried to jump Karmelo Loon.
Now suddenly, the conversation wasn't just about missing footage anymore. It was about competing versions of the same event. One version accepted by the court, another version being argued by Dr. Umar and many of Karmelo Anthony's supporters. And whether people agree with him or strongly disagree, one thing became clear. The video wasn't the only thing Dr. Umar couldn't understand. There was another detail that raised even more questions in his mind. A detail involving someone many people expected to hear from during the trial, but never did. By this point, Dr. Umar had already questioned the jury. He had questioned the evidence, and he had questioned the missing video. But then the conversation moved towards something that, in his mind, was even harder to explain. A witness who never testified. Because according to Dr. Umar, one of the biggest mysteries in the entire case involves someone many people expected to hear from, Hunter. And the reason this became such a major talking point is actually pretty simple. In most high-profile cases, people naturally look toward eyewitnesses for answers, especially when that eyewitness was allegedly present during the incident itself. The logic is straightforward. If someone saw what happened with their own eyes, wouldn't their testimony be one of the most important pieces of information available? That's why questions started spreading online. Why didn't Hunter testify? Was it a legal strategy? Was it unnecessary? Or was there another reason entirely? Now, it's important to remember that people can choose not to testify for many different reasons. Legal teams make strategic decisions all the time, and those decisions don't automatically prove anything. But for Dr. Umar, the absence of that testimony created a major opening for doubt, because he believes that if someone was present during a life-changing event, many people would expect them to tell their version of what happened. And that's exactly the point he focused on during the interview. In his view, the missing testimony left important questions unanswered. Questions about how the confrontation started, questions about who was involved, and questions about what really happened in those critical moments before everything spiraled out of control. As the discussion continued, Dr. Umar became increasingly passionate about this point. And that's when he delivered one of the most emotional moments of the entire interview.
Do you have a twin?
No.
Imagine you have a twin, right? Another Loon. We're going to call him Boone, right? Loon and Boone. Boone was murdered. His killer is on trial for his life. You were there when that man took your twin brother's life. Can I ask you a question, Loon? How under hell, how under heaven do you not take the stand in your brother's murder?
Right. I didn't understand.
You understand it?
Yeah.
Because if he would have took the stand, the defense could have cross-examined Hunter. Hunter, is it not true that you started this? Hunter, is it not true that you and your brother jumped Karmelo? Hunter, is it not true that it was 4 of you and not just your brother? Loon, Hunter didn't take the stand because Hunter was guilty. You're gonna unalive my brother and you don't think I'm gonna tell what I saw? I'm not even gonna take the stand?
That clip immediately became one of the most talked about moments from the conversation. Supporters of Dr. Umar argued that he was raising legitimate questions. Critics argued that he was making assumptions without access to all of the facts presented in court. But regardless of where people stood, the clip achieved one thing: it forced people to talk. And in controversial cases like this, sometimes the questions become just as powerful as the answers. Because once people start wondering why a key witness didn't testify, they begin re-examining everything else connected to the case. The evidence, the timeline, the verdict, and even the motives behind certain decisions. But as intense as that discussion became, the next topic would spark an even bigger debate, because the conversation eventually shifted toward a single statement allegedly made before the confrontation, a statement that prosecutors viewed one way and Dr. Umar viewed completely differently. Then the conversation shifted to one sentence that may have changed the entire trial. But just when viewers thought the biggest questions were focused on the prosecution, Dr. Umar shifted the conversation in a completely different direction. Instead of only criticizing the events surrounding the case, he began questioning the decisions made by the defense team itself. According to Umar, some of the defense strategies raised serious concerns. He suggested that the people responsible for protecting the defendant may not have handled certain aspects of the case in the strongest possible way. One of his biggest criticisms involved what he described as potential conflicts of interest. A conflict of interest can happen when a lawyer or legal representative has competing responsibilities that could affect their ability to fully defend their client. Umar questioned whether certain relationships, decisions, or circumstances surrounding the defense team created doubts about whose interests were truly being prioritized.
Respectfully and allegedly, he set Karmelo up for this legal execution. If I was talking to Mike Howard, Karmelo's lead defense attorney, I got 3 questions for Mike Howard. Number 1, why was Toby invited onto the defense being good friends with the prosecution? How do you not see that as a conflict of interest that could undermine Karmelo's freedom? That's my first question. Why is he on the team and he's friends with the opposition?
After this statement, the discussion moved toward one of the most controversial parts of his argument, the role of the defense attorney. Umar questioned whether the defense had explored every possible option and whether the legal strategy being used was actually giving the defendant the strongest chance. For many viewers, these comments created a new layer of controversy, because in high-profile cases, public attention usually focuses on investigators, prosecutors, and evidence. But Umar was pointing the spotlight toward the people standing on the defendant's side. And then came another major issue, the private investigator. Umar raised questions about how the investigation process was handled and whether the private investigator involved was being used effectively. A private investigator can often play a critical role in a defense case. They may search for new evidence, locate witnesses, examine timelines, and uncover information that could challenge the prosecution's argument. But Umar suggested that there were unanswered questions about this part of the defense strategy.
Number 2, Loom, did you hire a private investigator?
Yeah. See,
Stay with me. Did you hire a private investigator to investigate what? All 21 witnesses. I want to see their texts, history of racism, social media, history of comments about black people, how they feel about black people, all 21 witnesses, so I can show that they were prejudiced before they took the stand. Right?
Exactly.
Did you investigate both of the Metcalf brothers? Did you investigate the Metcalf mom? Did you investigate the Metcalf dad to see what their opinions is on race and racism? Right? Did you investigate to see who knew who for how long? Because if you would have investigated, you should know, allegedly, that the father and the judge and the prosecutor all knew each other.
His comments immediately sparked debate because they challenged the assumption that the defense team had done everything possible behind the scenes. Was important information missed? Were certain leads ignored? Or was there a deeper issue affecting how the defense approached the case? These questions quickly became a major talking point among viewers analyzing the interview. And for many people watching, this was the moment the conversation changed. Because Umar was no longer just discussing what happened inside the courtroom, he was questioning the people who were supposed to fight the hardest for the defendant. But even after these accusations, Umar had one more claim that shocked viewers even further. A claim that would take the entire discussion in an unexpected direction. And then came the most explosive claim of the entire interview. By this point in the interview, the discussion had moved far beyond a simple breakdown of a courtroom battle. What started as questions about evidence and legal strategy had turned into a much bigger conversation about fairness, representation, and whether the entire system surrounding the case could be trusted. Throughout the interview, Umar repeatedly returned to several major issues. First, the jury question. He questioned why there were no black jurors involved and argued that the makeup of a jury could have a major impact on how a case is viewed and decided. For Umar, this was not just a technical legal issue. He presented it as a question of representation and whether every community had a fair voice inside the courtroom. Then came the issue of the missing video. A piece of footage that many believed could have provided important context became one of the biggest points of discussion. Questions continued to circulate. Why was the video not available? Could it have changed how people understood the events? And if something this important was missing, what did that mean for the search for truth? The conversation then moved toward the witness issue. Umar questioned why certain people connected to the case were not providing testimony, and why some voices that could have answered important questions were absent from the courtroom. For viewers following the case, these unanswered questions created even more uncertainty. But the strongest criticism came when Umar turned his attention back to the defense. He challenged whether the defense team had done enough. He questioned their decisions, their strategy, and whether they had fully used every opportunity available to protect their client. Each point added more tension: the jury, the missing video, the unanswered witness questions, the defense strategy. Together, they created a picture Umar described as much larger than a single courtroom argument. And then, near the end of the interview, his tone changed completely. The frustration that had been building throughout the conversation reached its peak.
Where was the private investigation, Loon? Where was the private investigation to gather the facts, Loon? Number 3, how in the hell do you not raise holy hell about the fact that the judge allowed a jury without a single black person? The case was decided at the jury.
But why is the lawyer, what is his interest though? I don't understand, because again, dude, it's 10 things. When I was
said,
looking
what is his interest?
Yeah.
The preservation of white supremacy.
That's it, but
That's it. That is everything. What do you mean that's it? White supremacy runs America. White supremacy founded America. White control over black people is critical. This Karmelo case, Loon, is bigger than what you're seeing.
Entire final section. Why no black jurors? Preservation of white supremacy. Case bigger than knife. In this final moment, Umar made his strongest and most emotional argument. He claimed the case represented something much bigger than the object involved in the incident itself. To him, the discussion was not only about a knife, a trial, or one individual decision. He connected it to broader issues of history, power, and systemic inequality. His words immediately sparked intense reactions. Some viewers saw his comments as a powerful criticism of deeper problems within the justice system. Others debated whether his conclusions went too far. But regardless of where people stood, one thing was clear. The interview had transformed from a legal discussion into a national conversation about trust, fairness, and the meaning of justice. And that final emotional statement became the moment many viewers remembered most. After all the questions, accusations, and emotional moments, one thing became clear. Dr. Umar's interview was no longer just a reaction to a court decision. It had become a much larger debate. Supporters of Umar's comments believe he raised important questions about fairness, representation, and the way the justice system handles controversial cases. They argue that the issues he highlighted deserve attention and deeper discussion. They reject his claims and argue that some of his conclusions go beyond the evidence available. They believe the case should be judged based on the facts presented in court rather than broader interpretations surrounding it. And that disagreement is exactly why the conversation continues. The sentencing may be over. The courtroom proceedings may have reached their conclusion, but the public debate is far from finished. People are still analyzing the missing pieces, the legal decisions, the testimony, and the arguments made throughout the entire process. For some, Umar's words represented a necessary challenge to the system. For others, they created more questions than answers. But regardless of opinion, the impact of the interview cannot be ignored. It pushed the case back into the spotlight and sparked discussions far beyond the courtroom. One thing is certain, Dr. Umar didn't just react to the sentence. He turned the entire case into a debate that people will be arguing about for years.